This one is by far the best BMW X5 ever made. It's such a stunning design. The development started in 1994, the design was frozen in 96. This one right here is not your normal 4.4 or 3-liter X5. This is the 4.6 IS, 340 horsepower in this Estoril blue. You could only have this in 4 colors, by the way. This to me is the best color to have on this car. I've been waiting so long to get my hands on one of these cars. And today we're gonna do that. We're gonna have a look at the front end design, the side view, the rear, the interior, which has that early 2000s BMW smell to it. If you've been in one, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then of course we're gonna take this for a drive.
The E53 BMW X5 4.6 IS is powered by a 4.6-liter naturally aspirated V8, putting out 342 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque, connected to a 5-speed automatic. You got all-wheel drive. 0 to 60 takes 6.2 seconds. Top speed is 150 miles per hour. The fuel economy comes in at 13 city, 17 highway, and the price for this, when new, was $66,800.
Starting with the front end design, and I love this generation BMWs. It just has that confident look to it. When you walk up to this front end, it tells you that this car is going to get you wherever you need to go, no problems. Even if it's a blizzard, in the desert, look at this face. It tells you it's going to get you where you want to go. And this is based on, it's sort of an lifted E39 5 Series. So BMW has just bought Land Rover back in '94, and they said, why don't we take the off-road capabilities of Land Rovers, which we just bought, and the sporty drivetrain from the 5 Series and put that into this package. And that's exactly what they did, and that's how the E53 X5 was born. What's so special about the 4.6 and the 4.8-liter X5s is that they had a specific body kit on them. So if you look all the way down here, we have this painted section right here, and this was the response from BMW to Mercedes, who had just dropped the ML55. So BMW thought, we need to have a performance SUV to compete with that car, and this is what they came up with. They weren't sure in the beginning if they wanted to call this an X5M, but in the end they thought that at the time it wasn't suitable to put the M badge on an SUV, so they called it the 4.6 IS, and I'm glad they did. But even so, the next generation, they actually came out with an X5M. I just can't get over how beautiful this car is. This one has done, I think, about 130,000 miles, but from the looks of it, it just looks almost brand new. What I like about this design is if you look up here on the hood, we have these lines here in the hood cutting down, and look where they connect right into the end points of the front grille. And this was the era when the BMW didn't go overkill with the front grills. Instead, they have them in line, as you can see, with the headlights here, exactly like I want to see. I also love these subtle dips here that we have in the headlights, and then we have these, the washers. So you have 4 washers in total, 2 on each side for each little headlight here. These reminds me, they look like teeth in the front end, so it makes it maybe a little bit more aggressive. But the thing about this hood is, these graphics right here, they're actually making almost a comeback today. If you look at the new M3, the M4s, they still have these funnels going down into the grille, even though in a little bit more static design today, and I definitely prefer this, where they have a little bit more organic and rounded shapes to these forms up top on the hood. Now, looking at the side view and the proportions of the 4.6 IS, again, this color is just absolutely stunning to me. Love this shoulder line, and there is something very specific with the shoulder line if you compare it to the E39 5 Series. First of all, we have this little swing here, little boomerang action going on, but if you go all the way back here, follow this line into the taillights, they actually cut right in this curvature of the taillight, while in the E39 it has a clear connection to the separation between the indicator light and the lower red part, which I kind of prefer because it feels more natural to have the line stick out from here. But they decided to bring it up a little bit to cut the overall height visually in half and make it not sit so high visually. I think they did a good job with that. One of the most important features of any X5 from the E53 era are the wheel and tire setup. you need to have the right wheel and tires for this car. These are properly designed wheels and tires for this specific car. They're much beefier, 315s in the rear, 275s in the front end. This was back in 2001. You also have 20-inch wheels. Love this graphic because this makes it stick out even further with this plastic piece right here. And this was an era when BMW, they had sort of a rule in their design guidebook, I would call it, where if you look at the car from a straight rear view, which we're going to do in a minute, the car needed to have this planted sumo stance to it. And I think this is the model that defined that stance for BMW of the time. Another very cool and interesting feature of the X5, specifically the 4.6, is you have the wider fenders with these plastic pieces right here. And if you look at the side view down here at the bottom, you can see it has this almost 60s fuselage design. So it goes inwards here and then it just shoots out with this big silver side step specific for the 4.6 IS. And I think it's an absolutely gorgeous design. It's still today, if we were to just update a couple of key graphic features for this car, I do think it would still be a very good looking and modern design in 2024. Coming around to the absolutely beautiful, I can't stop mentioning how beautiful I think this X5 is, but coming around to the rear end, as I said, they bought Land Rover in the mid-90s, implement a lot of things from the Range Rover into this car, and one of those features is the split tailgate. So you can open it this way and then you can have this little park bench here, and this came straight from the engineering department of Range Rover. And I think we see that in a lot of modern cars or SUVs today as well, bringing this feature back. I do think that's a cool feature. Here you can see how the shoulder line cuts in and creates this wraparound design all around the car, and have this scooped up vibe here, looking very, very clean and very timeless, I would say this design is. Now we do have some special graphic features in the front end for the X5 4.6. That also happens here in the rear. For example, if we go all the way down, we have these beautiful exhaust pipes, symmetrical, of course, that was the thing back in 2001. But in addition to that, as we have in the front, we also have this body panel here, which is also in this estrial blue color with these fins on the side. And I remember as a kid, not a lot of kids, I guess, would appreciate small little design features like this little section down here. But I remember I thought that looked so cool. The reason why BMW did this is the same reason they put the shoulder line a little bit higher than the E39. That was to bring the lower part down to the ground by adding this body color piece here, because remember, this was BMW's first ever, and in my opinion best ever SUV that they produced. So they didn't really know how the audience were going to take it or how the buyers were going to take it, so they wanted to make it visually sit lower like the other cars that they were producing of the time. Now overall, the proportions of this thing, one of the best looking SUVs of all time in my opinion. And just have a look downstairs at the width of the rear tires, the 315 millimeter wide tires, and how that properly plants this car on the ground, in addition to these beautiful fenders and these plastic pieces sticking out the hips even more. Overall, the exterior design for this is just one that will go down in history as BMW's best ever designs. Welcome to a 2000s classic, the BMW X5 4.6. And the first thing you notice, this is something that I can't explain on camera. You just have to step into a BMW of this era and you're gonna get this smell. And this smell is one of the best smells in the world because it brings me back to my childhood. I'm not sure what it is specifically about BMWs of this time that produces this smell. Maybe it's the glue getting old or aging and creating this smell, but it's a fantastic experience every time I jump into an E39, an E53, an E38. They all have the same smell. So looking at the layout here, classic early 2000s BMW with this big dash right here, beautifully done, and the intakes here as well. Let's fire this up because it's getting very hot. I think it's about 95 degrees outside today, so let's get some AC blowing. Startup sequence is also beautiful. Oh yeah, the 4.6 liter V8, and it looks like the gauge cluster is coming straight from the E39 M5. because it has this light silver background in addition to this variable red line, looking exactly like the E39. And as I said, this is essentially a lifted E39 5 Series because they didn't have a lot of experience building SUVs and they wanted to put this out very quickly, so they decided to take a lot of features from the 5 Series, which is not a bad thing at all. We have these beautiful vents in line or following the surface of the dash up here. We also have this aftermarket display here. Actually, it looks very clean and looks super well integrated in the overall dash. Thankfully, we do have the silver trim instead of the wood trim. That's what you want specifically in a 4.6 IS. You don't want the wood trim in here. And down here, this is the classic dash from the early 2000s of BMWs, and I would guess that it still feels brand new. It certainly does. The buttons feel very nice. You have the fan speeds here. All the lights and LEDs work. You have AC 2-zone climate control in here. You also have heated seats down here. Again, all buttons and LEDs work. You have hill descent control. This is a function or a technology that took straight from the Land Rover as well. And some traction control buttons here and the button for opening up the trunk. Then you have this little area here. You can close this or open it up. You have a cigarette lighter here. This is a very interesting housing for the gear selector. It sits raised up, so the area where you see what gear you're in is actually on a very steep angle. So if you go through here, classic BMW, and in this one you also have the sport mode. You can move it to the left. You can actually shift this manually with the shifter if you want to do that. Putting it back into park. Moving further back, you do have the hazard button right there. Slider underneath here. You have two cup holders. Classic e-brake, of course, this being early 2000s, love it. You have a leather rest armrest with some slider storages here. I'm not sure what you would use this for, maybe pens or something. Actually, you would use it for markers, because if you get the urge to sketch something, you always have your markers here. Big pen, couple of cool grays, that's all you need, and then you can open this entire thing up and you have some more storage underneath here. Everything feels so solid. I love it about this generation of BMWs. Moving on to the gauge cluster, of course, 5 Series style. As I said, instrument cluster looks to be from the M5, and so does maybe the steering wheel. It's just lacking this M badge down here in the bottom. On the right side of the steering wheel, you have the stock for the windshield wipers, and on the left side, of course, are the indicators. And listen to this click noise. Just oozes quality, this car. On the left side of the steering wheel here, you do have the settings for the light settings, for the headlights. And moving on to the steering wheel, we do have the sportier version, thankfully, for the 4.6, not the 4-spoke. Instead, we have the 3-spoke design here with the round center and the BMW logo in the middle. Cruise control settings on the right side, and then you have some radio settings and volume settings. Even voice command here on the left side. Now, looking at these seats, they look very comfortable. They actually are very comfortable as well. They're power adjustable, both the driver and the passenger. They don't have surprising amount of side support here, which I think is totally fine for this type of vehicle. It's still a luxury SUV with a lot of sporty features to it, so we don't want to have bucket seats in this car. I think these are just the right amount of side bolstering in the sides here. Up top, we do have some space where you can store your shades, and in this case, we do have a sunroof up top as well. It's always great to be back in this generation of BMWs. I think this is the golden era for BMW, at least in my opinion. Might be for nostalgic reasons, I'm not sure, but this smell, the feel, this solid feel you get from everything in here is just a special era of BMW. So with that said, let's jump into the back seat and let's see if I can fit behind my own driving position. I'm actually curious to see if I can do that. I'm 6'1", 6'2", so let's see if I can fit behind my own driving position in here. So let's jump in and check it out. And actually, I fit pretty good in here. It's not a problem with the leg space. Headroom is substantial as well. As you know, back in the day, back in 2000, like almost 30 years, 25 years ago now, the greenhouse, if you look at the greenhouse, this area, and compare it to the body, the greenhouse was a lot taller back 25 years ago. Now this is shrinking more and more in modern cars, which also has to do a lot with safety and also makes the car look a lot sportier. And that is probably why I have such good headroom in the back here, even though by modern standards, this is not a very big SUV anymore. Back here you also have heated seats in 2 different levels. All the LEDs, of course, they work. And if we fold down this center portion, we don't have any cup holders for the passengers, not even in the door. So they're gonna be thirsty back here. All right, let's take the X5 4.6 IS out for a drive. 342 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque from a naturally aspirated 4.6 liter V8. When this came out in 2001, this was the fastest SUV you could buy on the market. It's not fast by today's standard. Not at all, I wouldn't say, but that has absolutely nothing to do with driving this car. The point with driving a car like this is just the emotions that you get from it. It doesn't matter if it's a 25-year-old car. If you have a personal connection to the specific car, it's going to feel so much more special, and listen to that noise, than a modern X5. So this only came in 4 different colors. You have the Estoril Blue, which is this one right here. By far my favorite color for this. I think it makes it look more modern to have it in this color. And 126, almost 127,000 miles on the clock, and it drives like a tank. It's so solid. So you can have the Estoril Blue. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place because I'm very excited about driving this car. Estoril Blue, Imola Red, or Titanium Silver, and if you wanted to, you can also get it in black. But if you were to get it in black, I think that would ruin the small little subtle details that makes the 4.6 different from the 4.4 or the 3.0, for example, with all these bodywork, the bodywork that we have here, specifically in the lower and the front, the lower side of the front end, and also the rear end with these body-colored pieces. It looks so much better when you have it in a color different than black. I actually kind of like this integration that they did for this X5. This is of course not stock. This is an aftermarket piece for this specific car, and I think it looks very, very cool because it sort of blends in with the rest of the interior. It's very well done. You have navigation here, you have backup camera if you want to install that as well. Very, very cool. I think I said this in the video before, but I think this is, to me, it's no question, this was the golden era of BMW. It's just such good cars when it comes to the driving, and more so when it comes to the design. And think about this, when you step on this, you can feel the entire car just shaking and vibrating from that big 4.6 liter V8. You also feel that when you're just revving it at standstill. The whole car just shifts a little bit. It's a very, very special experience that I don't really feel like we have in today's cars. So let's check out the turning radius of a 2001 BMW X5, and it feels like it's a go-kart just turning this thing, even with the fat 315mm rear tires, and I could drive this forever. I love this generation BMW, in case you didn't know that already, but I don't know, they're just different. They were the perfect balance between analog and maybe not digital, but they still have that analog connection with the road. You can feel in the steering wheel what's going on. There is a physical connection from the steering wheel down to the front wheels. And that is also something that's going away with the drive-by-wire today, both with the throttle and also the steering in a lot of new cars is also electric. And then we have this smell. I wish I could explain what the smell is, but if you know what I'm talking about, comment down in the description. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go find yourself an old E39 or an E53 or an E38 BMW. Go in there and just soak up this beautiful, wonderful smell that we have in these old cars. Oh yes, 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 yes. I think the X5, they did release the 4.8 after this one, so that was the top of the line E53 X5. But the 4.6, I think this feels like it was ahead of its time, because they just released the X5 and they pretty quickly decided, same with the ML55, they pretty quickly decided to make it into a sports SUV, which was something we've never heard of before. And that is the magic when you combine two companies. BMW just bought Land Rover at the time, and they wanted to keep the sportiness of the brand BMW, but at the same time use whatever they have the knowledge from Land Rover and apply that into the DNA of BMW. And this is of course the result, the X5 4.6 and the 4.8. What a machine, what a solid car this is. Massive thanks to European Auto House for letting me review this beauty today. Go and check them out at europeanautahouseco.com. I'm gonna link that down in the description. They have a lot of cars from this area, which is why I love coming here and shooting cars. There's an Audi TT here. There was an Audi S8. I'm not sure if it's still here, but all the way back here, yes, it's actually still here. I don't know if you can see it right here. Check that out. That's the V10 S8 right there. So huge thanks to European Auto House, and thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.